Not the music.
This is The Righteous View with your hosts, Adia Byers, Deborah Hoskins, and Christina McCormick.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. This is The Righteous View. We welcome you to our show. Our weekly podcast will focus on topics regarding women of all ages. Our mission is to foster righteous, open dialogue and on topics that have been taboo within our social communities. We want to cultivate open and healthy discussions between mothers and daughters, husbands and wives, mature women and young women. Our goal is to educate and provide factual information to these demographics concerning our biological, psychological, and spiritual existence. So, introducing my co host, the lovely Christina McCormick and the lovely Deborah Hoskins. Our special panelists who we have for this marriage series is Patricia Douglas, but she won't be with us this evening, but she will return on our next podcast.
Good evening to each and every one. We want to encourage you to tune in weekly every Thursday evening at 6 p.m. That's every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here for thought-provoking topics that will hopefully stimulate conversations that are sometimes hard or uncomfortable.
Yes, we are live on Facebook at the Hebraic Awakening and the Righteous View. If you missed the podcast, you can view it and past podcasts on our YouTube channel at the Righteous View. If you enjoy topics and the discussions have helped you in any way, please subscribe, like, and hit the notification button.
That's right. Hit that notification button. Oh, so it's so awesome. We're going through this series called So You Say You Want to Get Married. So today's topic, last week we went through and had a great time going through, how do you know this may be a person, the dating game, what you should look for in a husband. So this week we're going to dive into questions and discussions that you and your to-be spouse need, or possible may be spouse need to discuss. Where we're gonna start out with Christina, and she's gonna take us through that first topic.
Okay, this is a touchy topic.
Yes, it is.
I've heard so many different viewpoints on finances. And, I know we are biblically based, but I'm not going I'm not gonna take it there, because when you take it there, people gonna get mad. People gonna get mad. You know what I'm saying? So we in 2025, okay, and I know the women. We doing our thing. We got our own money. We got our own car. We buy houses without a husband. I understand. So that's why I'm not gonna take it take it there. But when I was getting married, that's the first thing that I was worried about, because I saw it in so many marriages. Finances were a very big problem. I know it got to be number two, fighting with number one on the divorce rate. Why people get divorced? Like, people will up and leave for financial reasons, especially if one person is just not, the elevator not going all the way up to the 10th floor. And y'all, finances are really big. That is something that I heard before I got married, that as soon as you get married, them finances about to get tested. And I was shocked that it was so rapid and true. Like, boom, me and my husband got married. He had his own business. He was making money, but it was the stupidest things that was happening. And I was not financially literate. That is something that I admit. And I was not financially savvy. And having a lot of money coming into the marriage and not being financially savvy was devastating for me. And there is a spirit on having money, and I emotionally I found that out. And just to be transparent, I'm gonna tell you this one thing I used to do. um I wasn't used to all of this money coming in, and so I had got really like high minded, that I'm ashamed to admit this, okay, I would not want to wash the clothes in the dirty clothes hamper, so I would just go buy new ones. a whole new a whole new whatever. I replaced everything that was in that hamper. And I don't know if I threw the clothes away or put them in the garbage. It was outrageous what I did. When I left to come move to North Carolina, I left new clothes, new shoes, a closet full of it, all because I got tired of packing. And I was like, I could just get some more clothes when I get to North Carolina. Uh, you know, so you need to know who you marrying and how they feel about money, because we all have financial trauma. And because I was a single mother that was struggling, and I didn't have financial knowledge, literacy, when I got my hands on that money, I was a hot mess. And so you need to know, y'all, you need to talk about it at least, especially if women, okay, we y'all gonna tell me how y'all feel about that. But especially women who have their own houses and they allow the man to move into the house and his name is not on the mortgage. It's so many different scenarios surrounding finances,
Yeah.
but I just want to quickly, you should talk about it. So that's something that I did talk about before we got married. And
Mhm.
I was given some great advice, but I still didn't have the financial literacy until oops and oops and oops and oops. And so I can see the financial personality differences. So let me go there really quickly. So when you getting married and you're going through the courtship, engagement, I think you should do this through courtship just to see, because we all come from financial some type of financial trauma unless you came up in a home that just had money. But even then, okay, we even see even some of the athletes and the stars, their children are just given this, and some of them don't have to work for anything, and they become financially irresponsible. So you know that is trauma within itself. Having all of this money and you're born into wealth, and nobody really makes you work or think that you can. And a lot of us do this even without wealth. You hear a lot of us, well, I'm giving my children what I didn't have. And the children are just spoiled and selfish and cannot think when it comes to finances. So there are 7 different personalities according to psychology. Okay. People who have studied people with money. So let's see where we fall into place. Because I was cracking up. I was like, ooh. Okay, let's hit it. Compulsive saver. You save money endlessly. The source of security. Money is your source of security. You don't feel secure without money. You're very frugal, very responsible. You are a bargain expert, but you have a fear of irrational spending. And yeah, compulsive spender. You make unnecessary purchase. You spend when you are in emotional distress because you need immediate gratification. Man, a compulsive money maker. Life is better when you earn more money. When you making more money and you're making wealth, that is your number one priority in life. You don't care what is going on in the world. You are just obsessed with making money and creating wealth. And you want recognition for your success. I think a lot of us can be fluid in and out of these personalities. Number 4, you're indifferent to money. You're financially well off. You rarely think about money. Money shouldn't influence important decisions because you already got money, but you don't understand. Everybody else don't have money. So you're like, why is money gonna influence that important decision? You should just make the decision. No. Saver, splurger. Ooh wee. A combo of saving and splurging. You're smart and you can save, but you will impulsively spend your savings if something come up that you just feel like you can't handle. You're gonna spend that savings. Woo, I'm learning. Uh, let's see. The gambler. You are a spender and a money maker. So you gonna make that money, but you also gonna take big risk with the money. You're happy with financial wins, but as soon as you do not have a win, and this is just not with gambling, this is just with whatever. You didn't get the account, or you didn't get what you want, you didn't reach your financial goals, you go into depression. And I mean for real depression. Now you ain't never gonna be nothing. You wasn't nothing. You don't know what you start talking like that. Number 7, the worrier. You are constantly worried about losing money. You lack confidence to achieve financial freedom, and you're always in preparation mode. And during our mental wellness, this is a sore spot because our women, they really want to talk about this. And we have financial trauma. We really do. And we talked about that a little bit. And I'm gonna go over that just a little bit really quickly. Financial trauma. Okay. And I wrote this down when we just discussed this in the mental wellness. There are different things that lead to financial trauma, and you should be talking about it as you are courting. Some people have low reading comprehension. That's a weapon to financial illiteracy. Our people could not vote at the time. That was a weapon to financial literacy. Exploitation of labor, right? We have sharecropping and so on. Deny renting or buying land in our bloodline. Criminal laws to imprison you easily in our bloodline. Low paying jobs. Signing contracts to agree to low wages. Arrests, unpaid labors, and fines. That goes with sharecropping. So there's it was like no way really out of sharecropping once you got in, because if you signed a contract and you wanted to break it because you felt it was unfair, you got arrested, unpaid labor, and both of my grandfathers were sharecroppers, right? Surveillance in our neighborhoods, few resources, welfare, a big one, not having enough, so you hoard. So that's a lot of our and I ain't mad at them, but that's a lot of our elders. You're like, how in the world you got a whole garage full of food and detergent and bleach and water? I mean, that could last you for a year or two in a garage, all right? And they will tell you the Great Depression, right? Religion is a financial barrier. It really is. You're afraid of theft. So that's why you have to ask your potential spouse how they feel about finances, because for real, growing up, I didn't care about money. I did. My mother, I lost $20, and I remember my mom saying, "You better go find that money." And I went. I looked for approximately 5 minutes. I was like, I can't find that money, and I just went to play. And my mom was like, "You do not care nothing about no money," and that sticks with me because I'm like, man, I remember her saying it. I remember me looking for it. I was like, man, forget it. And I was always giving stuff away, and I grew, and I'm kind of like that today, but the Most High has me really focusing on finances. So you don't want to, which many of us have already done, go into the marriage thinking, oh, it'll get better when you're not really sitting down, because it doesn't get better. You have arguments. If you have a emotional spender, and it's usually opposites attract. So my husband, if you think I I will spend, but my husband like to spend money, honey. He don't look at prices. He say if you can't afford it, why are you in the store? If you gotta go and ask how much this costs, why are you even shopping? I'm telling you, my I know he gonna be like, but this is something he'll tell you. Like this is, and his father was like that. And I was like, when I'm hearing the stories about his father was like that. He said, if you got to go in the store and ask, please, please. And if I'm going on a trip, I'm going to buy what I want. So you will have somebody who, is splurging and spending and they making money. And then you may have the very frugal person that's like, nah, we really don't need to do none of that. And opposites attract. So you're gonna have to like compromise, because I know that um looking at people marriages and even looking at homemakers that didn't have, and I would hear stories how they got a divorce and they had to start over and they didn't know nothing. They didn't know, about working and saving. And so I went in wanting to have joint bank accounts. So I have heard people like, no, that's his money, this my money, and that's how we roll. And from everything that I've studied and I witnessed personally, that is really not, the best overall take on money. It really causes problems, especially, if somebody is cheating, or they can be cheating financially. Like you got all these accounts and nobody is saving because you really don't know. And I do believe in like me having an account where I'm spending money on certain things, and we have a joint account, we have a business account. However, I we know I know my husband think I got a whole $1 million stash somewhere, but we know what each other is doing because we are accessing each other's account. Now, women, I know we be having little stashes up under the mattress or whatever. However, it's really not a good take according to psychology and from just my personal experience looking at people's marriages. It never worked out good hearing, being a part, living with people that are married or um, being a part of ministry and you're in the background and you're in leadership and you you hearing the stories, and I was like, man. And that's why when we got married, that was the first thing that I was interested in, is in finances. So anybody can jump in. What do you all think about that?
Well, if I'm laughing back here in the background because first of all, I know your husband because we went together, and he and I was like this. If you don't have, if you can't afford it, don't go in the store. But if I'm going in the store, like, okay, now if they say something over a price that's just ridiculous, then I'm gonna say, yeah, no, I'm not gonna do especially usually. See, I'm funny because I'm the kind of shopper where I will stay out for weeks and weeks. So I will go out, look for it, and I would go to all the different stores, gather my prices. I will see if how the price looks. I may even wait until it will go on sale. I remember these two, Jones of New York. I love Jones of New York as a designer
Yeah.
because their clothes just fit well on me, and I like the style. It's a real classy, kind of city style. And I was in at I can't remember what store it was in Winston, but anyway,
Uh-uh. Your internet acting up.
Yeah, it is. You froze. You froze on us.
Yeah, she did. Let's see. Maybe she'll.
Maybe have to go out and come back in.
Yeah, maybe she'll have to go out and come back in. All right, prophetess, what you?
A lot of the points you made were really good, and even like what you were saying, in regards that one maybe having their own, finances. Some women, they're well established in essence, right? And and so they may have houses, and different things and just things in general. Whereas now they're considering marriage, and the man may not be as established as that, which you know what I'm saying. So
Right.
sometimes you gotta look at, the situation, but most of the things that you said was absolutely true, but also realize that you're coming into a union and you're one, and if you're going to be one, then you're going to have to work out the kinks of, and one thing I feel is the one who's the better financier, who's able to handle, should be that one. Because some people are like, well, I'm the man and I'll handle the finances. No, I believe in the person who's the best person to handle finances, and that you come into agreement, and then not just as that, but also making it known of what's going out, having, like you said, you and your husband, y'all have, what each other have, and we know people have a little bit on the side, but I know a family member who both her and her husband were doing very well, but the thing of it, he was doing most of the bills or whatever. Anyway, she was giving and giving in. And then come to find out he had a whole separate thing going on that she just happened to accidentally find out. And that made a big problem in the marriage, because so these things you can't be holding out, because if you're coming together and you're a potential spouse, then you both have to, because it's, marriage is a give and take. So I don't want to go into another area, but just a lot of what you're saying. And
Mhm.
as far as like me and my husband, when we came into our marriage, he was, working. I had a profession, and I was making a good salary and everything. I wasn't the best person financially. No, as far as saving and different things, having to learn how to do better. And actually, both of us, he was at a time better than me. And then sometimes it switches around,
Yeah.
but you have to always have that open conversation, open dialogue, open, where you're not hiding or different things. Because there was a time, I was handling everything, and I overspent, and I did something. I was like, oh my goodness, why did I do this? And all of this. But then, opening up, and then, well, like you said, as you're going, these are the things you have to discuss, if in your potential mate or husband, because these things you got to kind of go into every area. And even if you have debts, because sometimes one may have debt, like what is your debt
Yeah.
situation?
Yeah.
Because we know people are in debt, and people hide some of these debts, and then you go into this marriage, and now this person got debt, they got child support, they got all kind of things going on. And now you got to be, so all of this got to be open. You got to be open and ask all things. And you got to be clean with yourself too, because if you are holding and you got your credit record, things, you're just a financial mess.
Yes.
These things got to be discussed and worked out. I feel, even before you go into the marriage, and then even in this is when you know that you're both going to get married, that you're planning this and whatever, that you're open. And once you do this in the beginning, things happen in the marriage, but if you're open, you're able to work together, because you have been, or you have begun, you started this with an open, just kind of being clean with everything, what's going on with me, and and everything, or what's going on. But as you're looking, this person, look, and then also see, you see how they do too, financially, even before, how things, there are always red flags in situations.
Yes.
Because also, you don't want to be marrying somebody cheap either. Because that was always my big thing. I don't like, I'm being truthfully honest.
Yes.
I like the cheap person, I'm not cheap, and I don't want to marry somebody who's cheap. If you cheap, keep stepping, in essence, and I'm not saying that these
That's
things, but all of these things can be a big breaker in the marriage,
right.
and you can have
Absolutely.
problems in that marriage. So
Absolutely.
all
Absolutely.
of these things need to be addressed, I feel. Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, I don't know where I cut off, but I'm always that kind of person. So I always would be the one to search for a bargain. When my husband would I have a sister who say, "Girl, I ain't never seen nobody. You can go to CVS and buy a suit, and it'll be $7.99."
I'm a bargain hunter. I'm one of those. I'm one of those.
I mean, but I just and I always counted it as Father always, gave me a blessing to be able to find those bargains and do address. When I first went to look at it, it was like it was like $75 or something like that. And I said, yeah, I don't want to pay that much for that. And by the time I went back 2 or 3 weeks later, it was on a 60% sale. So I was like, oh, there we go. And then they had another one that was, so I was able to get both of them for less than what, so much less than I was going to get for that first one. But this is one thing. So I realized, you know, in working, we didn't always have like our separate accounts. So, you know, next week on Monday, we'll be married 46 years.
Wow.
And we are gonna go paint the town red in a cry. Yes, we gonna act like we 25 again. So yeah,
and go ahead and do that, girl. Y'all go ahead
and get back to the Airbnb and be knocked out to all people. But anyway, we always had a household account. Well, that's where we paid our bills from. The mortgage was paid from there. Car notes were paid from there. Utilities were paid from there. We paid food. That's where those things. Because I knew that I like to shop and look for bargains. I had a separate account, but my husband didn't know about it. So I had a little small account, and I said $100 first. And then when things started getting, I said, honey, I think I'm gonna have to give myself a raise. And he was cool with it. So I went up to $200 a month. So that would be my little shopping money.
Yeah.
So in my mind, it worked for us, and it worked for me because I never touched the household account. Money, not for those things. So that small account that I had in the credit union, I got my nails done, or I got my hair done, or if I found something, I wanted to go shopping, because I was putting a little $200 in there. And if I wanted to go a little bigger with something, then I would just take it, say we were going to go on a honeymoon vacation. I would let it build up 3 or 4 months, you know, and then I would have money to go shopping on while we were on our vacation. So it worked well in that way for us. And he had a credit union account where he saved, but my husband has always been about saving. I remember when we started dating, this man would have money falling out of the glove compartment. Wow. I was like, what is wrong with him? Give me that money. I will find something to do with it. But so he was the saver. He was the one that would save and stuff like that. I had to learn to do that you didn't have to spend if you had $1 in your pocket. And truly, if I had $1 in my purse, it needed to be spent, you know. So that was the thing where I had to learn. And that's one of the things that sometimes we don't learn coming out of our parents' home. Right. So because I married out of my mother and father's house into my husband's house, I didn't really have a lot of hands-on for that. Even though I was working a job, I still wasn't paying. I didn't know what it was to pay the mortgage or pay, a light bill. I had a little phone bill. The phone was in my name, so I paid a phone bill. So I knew about that. But of course, when you get married, then it's a whole different thing. So he had to do a lot of the teaching me, so far as money wise. But I think it's really important for us to have that conversation concerning financial stability. Because let me tell you, you marry a man and you don't realize that he got 5 children, right? Paying child support on. You know what I'm saying? Yep. That's getting ready to come out your pocket, ma'am.
Yep.
That's right. Yep. So that should be a conversation do you have any children outside? Would you have, do you have, children?
Mhm.
You know, have you been married before? What are your financial goals? What's your vision for your life in the next 5 years, next 10 years, retirement? Those are questions because they are based on that financial stability.
Mhm.
And just because he's a ma'am, no ma'am, does not mean that he's good with money. It
That's,
does not mean that,
that's right.
because there's a lot of men that are not good with money, and it's their wives who are the ones that are the savers and the ones with the vision of retirement. So you need to know
Yeah.
that. I think it's hilarious, Christina. You sound like Ava Gabor on Greasers when she used to throw the dishes out the window. Say, what are you doing? I'm washing the dishes.
Yeah, like
Throw
that.
them out the window. It's like they dirty. Why wash them? Just throw them away and go get some.
Crazy. Woo. It's
But
crazy.
but that's, when you don't have access to it and you don't understand the importance
Yes.
of it, and you look at money in that, don't look at
Mhm.
money that way. With some people, money is everything. And I've known, I remember talking to a woman who I worked with, who, she said that her husband had passed away. And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that." No, we were on grand jury duty. We were locked in that room for like a month, together. And she was a very nice woman, from the islands. And she said, "Yeah, my husband just passed away. I think she said like 2 months ago, months before." And I'm just giving all these condolences and everything. And she's sitting there looking at me like accepting them. And she said, "No, I'm glad he's gone." And ooh, I don't know what to say to that one. And she said he was a mean ogre. He was
Wow.
he was cheap. He made very good money. Had a very good job. All he did was save, save, save. We could, me and my daughter, he said he treated us terrible. And me and my daughter could not, we just, life with him was just brutal. And she said, and now he died. I went and bought us a home up in the Poconos. My
Wow.
daughter go there and celebrate. Oh, he made it real cushy.
Yeah.
Girlfriend is living on top of the world right now, but she said living with him was disastrous because
Wow.
he was one of those, what did you call it, where the people are,
Yeah.
that's all they do is
Also,
just,
yeah.
you
Compulsive
can't,
saver.
compulsive saver, where you can't spend anything. And she
Mhm.
said, literally, we did nothing.
Yeah.
I could spend nothing.
Yeah.
It would be the bare minimal that he wanted us. So clothes, so you can imagine, not even being able to, even when you need personal items,
Mhm.
you have to go to him and say, I mean, it's personal items,
Right. Right.
Um, and he's just, but once he passed away, she said, yeah, she said, and we're getting ready to go to Europe next year on
Wow.
vacation, me and my daughter. I mean, I'm like, this guy, because she ended up with his whole pension, with
Mhm.
all of his savings and his social security. So girlfriend was looking really, really good.
Right.
And she was like, I'm fine. He's gone and I'm fine with it. So that's how far it can take you to, when you go even from one extreme to the next. I
Mhm.
think no extreme is good,
Right.
because you've got the one doesn't that just spend, and you don't have any savings.
Mhm.
And you have the one where you can't, buy a new, anything. You're using, you know things that are broken and messed up and torn instead of replacing them,
Right.
because he doesn't want to spend anything. He's a compulsive saver. So that compulsive spender and compulsive saver, they're on the same level, because
Yeah, really.
drive you crazy, because you should be able to live some kind of
Right.
a normal life. Shouldn't be that I can't spend $5 and go to lunch with my friends with a $5 lunch, because my husband says no, you take your lunch, you can't, $5. So it's but that's one of those conversations that you have to have, and you have to be able to, like Prophetess Deborah, I absolutely agree where you said that's that conversation, but you got to see them, watch them,
Mhm.
and I mean, just say, hey, let's get together and go to the mall.
Right.
That'll tell them. That will do it. Let's just take next Sunday and just go to the mall. You'll find out. And if
Mhm.
you see him picking up everything and buying everything, and not, like Christine said, not paying attention to how much it costs. I mean, it's a different thing if you're getting ready to marry. He's
Right.
CFO of so and so company, dude making 2 million, 3 million and a half a year. He can probably go into places and do that, a little better. But if he just working at a Trader Joe's and he ain't making cash like that, and you looking at him like you just done spent your whole little paycheck, because I know about how much y'all make at Trader Joe's.
Yep.
So, and then that job, what do you see in how important
Mhm.
is his job, his position that he's in? And like I always tell my our daughter, he doesn't have to be wealthy. He could be a blue collar worker,
Mhm.
but be good and financial savvy to the point where make a very good life. You make
That's
a
right.
very good couple, and y'all make a very good life for each other. So
Mhm.
you don't have to walk around looking for a man who is, making, six figures,
Right.
because he could really truly just be making them them 5 figures, and but doing well and knowing how to handle himself well.
Yes. And that's a good thing. And another red flag, ladies. This to the religious community. Stop fake marrying these men with no marriage license, because all of what we talking about, you do not apply. Now, I know what y'all talking about behind closed
Absolutely.
doors, if you talking about
Absolutely.
that at all. So if you marry,
Absolutely.
you don't have a marriage license and you're not legally, and you hiding behind religion, you are
His
hiding
mama's
behind
gonna get
God.
everything. Let
And
him
that's what
die.
I'm about to say. Because
Let
no
him
matter
die.
what he done
His
told
mama
you,
can get everything.
you are not kin. I am so sorry. You are not the next of kin. So
Absolutely.
stop it. Stop it.
And
Because what you talking about?
but you know what? That's a good point, because there are some states that are common law.
Right.
And if you're common law, you can go to court and put it out to the judge, and you may
Man.
be able to receive his money coming from whatever area. Now, I'm going to tell you from a HR standpoint, if your name is not on that pension information, you're not going to get a dime. So if he was married before, and if you guys get married, the first thing you want to do is go have him contact his job and get all of his pension, retirement, all of his paperwork changed over. My sister married a man, divorced him. He didn't change none of his information. He married another lady. When he died, they called my sister. She got his whole pension.
See?
The whole thing.
See?
His wife didn't get any.
See?
Unless he had some small, some insurance
Right.
for her, but he just didn't. And my sister said that was just like him. That was one of the reasons we weren't together anymore, because that's how he was. He was just slowful and taking care of stuff and just doing it in his own way and figuring it's not important. So here you go.
Wow.
That's what happened. So one of the first things, if he was married before, that's what you want to ask. Who is on your pension? This is after you guys have decided, okay, we're going to be a couple. I think we're going to get married. Then you want to have that conversation because men, just from an HR standpoint, they will not take the time like we to go in and change those things, because sometimes I'm getting so busy. So you stay on him about changing that paperwork, because with retirement systems, how they go, period, whoever is on, and state and federal work the same way. Whoever is on that retirement paperwork, that's who's going to get his pension, period. Doesn't matter that he remarried and now you're his new bride and he dropped dead. Hopefully that doesn't happen to anyone, but I know people who it's happened to, because I was in HR for a long time, a good while, a career. If he, Social Security, the same thing. You want to ask, these are questions that you have to put out there, and you have to ask, how many children do you have? If you've ever been married before, what's the state of your finances? I mean, have you? And some of us just really need to sit down and find a financial analyst or financial estate planner. If someone is looking for that, my son is a wonderful, certified in every area, has his master's degree. He's also a professor at a historically Black university. And I know he's out there. My mama is just putting me out there. But you won't pay him. Absolutely. Don't go to him thinking you're going to get it free. You're going to pay him. But he's a great financial estate planner, and he will help walk you through. And he also in his business that he has, he's been in business for himself for many years now. His business, he will sit down. He's a financial planner, so he'll sit down with you, help you make up a monthly payment, schedule on how to pay your bills and how to save and put money to the side, investing money into maybe a 401k or whatever kind of program. But he is great. So if anybody wants that information, I can most certainly, if you reach out to us at the Righteous View 01@gmail.com, I can give you his information for you to reach out to him. He is a great asset to many people. He's the reason that we retired as well as we did. Absolutely. Because he was the one that I went to, I guess about 10 years out or something like that. And I said, look, I want to do this right. I want to be able to travel. I want the house to be paid up as much as it can be paid off, cars to be paid off. I want to be able to enjoy retirement. I do not want to work until I'm 75 because I have to. But I want to be able to retire, and I want us to be able to live well. And so he's a very good financial mind. But sit down and speak to a financial planner. And there's no embarrassment in that.
Right.
None at all. No, none at all.
Man, that was a good. That was good. Look, cha-ching, check. I got that. Look, that's why you. That's why we need, elders with some sense, because that's something that I didn't even know. Me and Robert talked about that, but that's something that I didn't even know to share with women. That part, like if they've been married before, make sure they change. That's really good, because I,
Woo!
if
Saw
you
it.
was me and the first wife got,
Wow.
look,
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Brother's wife was hot. You hear me? But my sister was like,
right.
oh,
You didn't.
I mean, you really think I'm going to give you all,
Right.
all
See?
that money? No.
And that's what my husband say. America, if you got married or you got a fake marriage, America understands documentation. That's what America understands.
Paul, that's
They don't care about your religion, and your Hebrew Christian community is not gonna make sure that when that spouse passed that you're gonna
Right.
get that money. They not.
They're
They
not.
can't. They
Yeah,
can't.
I mean, and I've seen it. My little cousin got shot and killed. He had been living with his little wife. They were, I guess, they were like 5%ers, Muslim. They didn't get married. They just went and stood before their imam, and there she is sitting there at his funeral, and his mom and dad got the whole takeaway.
That's what happens.
She's sitting there with a couple of kids.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure because they loved him,
Yeah.
that they will take care of and give her whatever she needs. But the bottom line is nobody should have to govern that for you. You're a grown woman. No one should have to govern that for you. And that's even going in, I guess, because at some point we're going to discuss, a husband taking, a second wife or sister wives. That's something that you have to take into consideration, because all of that, if he passes away or if something happens to him, or if his finances get hit, you're attached to him. And that's what people don't realize. Once you get attached to a person, you become them. Everywhere my husband's name is, guess who's attached to him? Me.
That's true.
Everywhere my name is, guess who's attached to me? Him.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you all get married, and I've had this conversation with people, if your husband is a complete liability and you marry him, then understand that it's going to take your finances down at least 25%, at least. Because even in the United States at this time, where a person has to be insured, now that's still viable in the US, isn't it? Where a person has to be insured. Okay, so you're the woman, you have the better job, you have the insurance, blah, 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 blah. You marry a man who does not have a job, nor does he have insurance. Or you marry a man who has a job, but they don't pay him insurance. Then guess what? You're going to get a nice little letter from the IRS saying, because your husband is not insured under health insurance, you must insure him. And if you don't within that next tax year, you know what they'll do? They'll come back and they will tax you, and you will receive a nice little a nice little, what you call it, when they send you, and the IRS sends you a bill and says, now you're going to have to pay this amount, because now they're going to insure him. So guess what? In in the state of, I know about the state of North Carolina. In the state of North Carolina, it costs approximately $500 to $700, maybe sometimes $1,000 in some private companies, to insure and put a spouse on your insurance. So guess what? $700 coming out of your paycheck a month just to insure a man who does not have insurance. Now your children you can put on your insurance all day long, right. and they will put them on there for about $100, $150, $100, $200 a month. But as soon as you put a spouse on, they're going to clock you. Yep. And guess what? You have to be making a really pretty good salary in order to be hit with that kind of premium. That's a premium. That's a monthly premium. And I saw it happen to people while I was in human resources with the state. $500 to $700 premium monthly. So if he is not insured, or if he does not have a job, automatically, he's a liability to you in your finances. So you have to take that in consideration. This is not trying to be negative. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. This is something that we have to think about. And that is just, that's just straight up the truth. True. Oh, what else to say? Yeah. But as a woman, and if he is in that position, then that's something that you need to take into consideration. If you want to marry him and you want to bring your finances down that much, because you would have to insure him, because he can say all day long, I'm not. And I'm definitely not generalizing in the statement. He could say all day long, okay, baby, I'm gonna get a job, or I'll get a job with some insurance. But sometimes that doesn't happen right away. So until it happens, you're gonna have to foot that bill for him to be insured, so that the IRS doesn't come back and hit you with a lump sum at the end of the tax year.
That's every state, to my understanding. Everyone has to be insured.
Okay.
And then if you have a job, like I didn't really have to pay much because the way the insurance that I had with the city of New York, they have different types that you can pick. That's what you're saying. You're absolutely right.
That's good.
Right. Yeah.
Because the state of North Carolina had terrible. We always complained about that. And when we had it was mandatory for spouses to get that insurance. I was like, I can't afford to put my husband on. I can't afford to have $500 come out of my.
Wow. And that's true. That's true.
Like, I can't afford it. I can't afford that. So praise Father Yah. He went into the school. He was substituting it. And he went in, and his principal said, "Mr. Myers, don't you want to take a permanent position as in?" And he was like, "Yeah, I guess my wife spoke us off." Uh-oh, my wife must have prayed. And he got a job, and his insurance and everything was taken care of. Because I was like, I can't $500 coming out of my check. Do, and it was mandatory. It was mandatory, or you would be hit with penalties by IRS.
Yep. And just something else that Christina had mentioned as well, in regard is, education, even in different things, like what are your, like something as she mentioned in regards like your grandparents, because my husband, his father was a sharecropper, and just things in that aspect. Even with jobs and so forth, because in literacy, because certain things you're not going to make certain monies. It's a lot of situation that needs to be brought out in the beginning
Absolutely.
that you need, because it puts a strain on the marriage and it can really break a marriage. And I've seen it happen. I have seen it, sad to say. It happens because it's such a strain, and because people weren't truthful, or not even so much truthful. You get so blinded to love, you don't get into the the necessity things that you're going to have to survive in. And finances is survival.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Most marriages end because of financial situations in that.
That's true. That's
And
right.
that's 9 times out of 10, that's how marriages, they don't last, because of things regarding around the finances.
Right.
You know? And like
if they had just had those conversations, it would have been clear. This, I can make the decision. This is how my wife is. She gets $1, she spends it. This is how my husband is. He gets $1, he spends it. Then you can at least say whether I want to deal with this for the rest of duration, life or her life. But at least you get to make the decision for yourself, and it's not thrust on you. And you're like, oh, I didn't know this was going to happen.
Surprised. So all of those things, and
well,
something go ahead. No, I was just going to say something that I find, like, once one is married, like you were talking about retirement and everything, and it was beautiful how you brought out a financial, as you spoke about, your son. And that's really important, because some people don't know how to do it, and they just messing up. And so you may need that, and don't be ashamed, because you need help, and not always you need just help, but just somebody who's educated to know how to make your finances work even better, in that you ain't even got to do all the work. So that's really, really smart in so many ways, that's something to take into consideration anyway. But something else that I also have found out, this is after people have been married, and just what Christina said in regards to make sure you get legal documents that you're married, because this thing with all of this is a lot of things that happen, and you can't put you're not legal. I don't care what way you do it. And even if you're in a common law state, it has to be a certain amount of time. And who wants to be labeled as common? Hello.
Common.
Labeled as common law. I think that's just, I don't want to be in that. And not that I think I'm all that, but I am all that, because I'm not. I'm not. So I don't even want it to be labeled as that. And people say, "Oh, well, you can do." Listen, get it. You're in a land where you want to get legal. Don't let nobody,
Absolutely.
Thinking like, "Oh, that's we just get this, and we, and we put on our marriage like no." Because
that's just like somebody said to me one time, well, you try on a pair of shoes before you wear them. I said, I'm not a pair of shoes.
No, and I'm not a cow. You don't need to be trying no milk either. All of these, you gotta make yourself as, I mean, even in scripture, there's a dowry. Am I right?
That's right.
Absolutely. And it's like
so
that
that's
here.
Right. You gotta see yourself as that. If the Most High see you as that, why put yourself lower? Why lower your spirit?
Than that. Right.
No.
And these dowries here in Ghana, these parents don't be playing. They're not playing. It's like, you want to marry my daughter? Okay, here's 4 pages, and you need to have all of this. When can you have it? And they say the man will look at it. That's why sometimes it takes a long time for them to get married, And it's like sometimes they're 4 pages. And what we've been told is that even when, like, if you come and it's a certain amount of fabric, because what it is that you're supposed to bring everything that she will need in order, representative of everything that she will need in order to live. So say it's fabric for clothes. So you have to bring a certain amount of fabric. And if it's cheap fabric, they said that the women that they'll sit there and laugh at you, throw it back in your face, and go back when you can bring something better. Then come back.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, they don't. No joke. They don't play with that at all. And that's why you have a lot of men and women walking around in their 30s here, not married, never been married, and they like,
Wow.
yeah, I'd like to have a wife, but I need to be able to make a little more money because
Wow.
the parents, that dowry, because they don't just put their daughters up just cheaply.
Yeah.
That they have to be able to pay. But then you have, and we're going to move on, but then you have the issue with parents who then kind of sell off their daughters. Like I was talking about before, that 1 out of 3 Ghanaian young ladies under the age of 18 are forced marriage. And it's because their parents want to get that dowry. So if they're 12, 13, 14 years old, that's why you have all these little girls walking around with these babies on their back, strapped on their back, because they probably married to some man who's like 40, 50 years old, who now he's taking care of her family because he's wealthy and is able to do that.
Wow.
But those dowries, they don't count their daughters as just, here, you can come and do this and give me $200.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, that was it for my thing.
Oh, okay. So we have, what is his spiritual belief?
Mm-hmm.
That matter?
Mm.
Should it matter? Absolutely, I believe, because you're going to live together, and spiritual belief in any country, it matters. Now, if you both parties don't have any spiritual belief of any kind, it may work. At least you're in alignment, you're in one minute of that. But if one has if you have a spiritual belief, I'll say, and you're looking for a potential mate, and his belief is different from your belief, does it matter? I think it would, in essence, because you're talking about possibly a family. And not only that, you become a family, you become a unit, you become one. So does it matter? Absolutely, because that's another big issue too, in a lot of times with divorces and separations, because of spiritual, when you don't agree, like your beliefs are totally different. And just bringing in scripture, the scripture says, how can two walk together unless they agree? So in that aspect, you have to agree. You have to come to an agreement. And if your beliefs, and if you are, don't and I would say, just to get married, if you are really strong in your belief and you have a relationship with the most, that you're really, your beliefs are, your spiritual beliefs are strong. Don't just to marry someone else, you kind of, how would I say, ready to give up. Because I've seen that, where those who were in certain beliefs, like as we are in the Hebraic rate, in the Hebraic belief, following Torah, I have seen those who married those because just a point. One who follows Torah, who proclaim to be y'all should be an Israelite, right? One who follows the scripture, the old as well as the new, follow the commandments and all the instructions. And then you find someone say, oh, well, he believes in the Most High, but he's Christian. I'm just, his beliefs are not the same. And I have seen personally those who have been in this faith and have given up their faith and went into Christianity. And, hey, I've seen where they're there and they seem like everything's, but I say, don't give up. And I feel if you really have a personal relation and if you are rooted and grounded in that faith, why, I don't understand. Why would you give up? Now, speaking on my behalf, in my faith, I was in this faith or, in this walk all my life, right? But at the time before marrying and before I even met my husband, I kind of was like that prodigal child, as the prodigal son. I came to myself and I reestablished my faith, my belief, my commitment, my vow to the Most High, that I would serve him and I would follow his commandments. Now, my husband was not really in any particular belief when we met, but he started coming. And I'm saying this because he started, because he was raised somewhat of a Christian, but he was not in no particular where he was, had really spiritual commitment, I would say, in any particular religion. Mm-hmm. So when he met me, he started coming out to the services because that's what I was all about. He was coming out. He even, started, coming on a regular basis, everything. And I'm going to say this because, and it may have been my husband, I don't know, but I've seen this too, that you have a spiritual belief and though they don't, and they come and start coming and just doing and have said, well, this is what, and then after you marry them, all of a sudden they don't want to be bothered. They don't even want. You see what I'm saying? So also in your beliefs, I would say, you question one's belief, and if they don't, you don't just grab hold, you wait. I would say it does matter. The question is, does it matter? Absolutely, it does matter. And whatever religious belief you may, don't sell out. That's all I say. Don't sell out. If you could come to where you come in agreement where you both, but make sure that in that it's, don't be haste to go in, to do or whatever. And if you are like have a really spiritual, that, a relationship, then you should sort the Father. Because sometimes we have young ladies who are anxious. Mm-hmm. And someone, and then listen, this is another thing. Someone could say they're in the same faith you're in. And I'm seeing a lot of these Hebrew brothers that say, oh yeah, I'm this, I'm, and they ain't really walking. Sorry. So also look at how they're walking. Don't just go by what they're saying, and don't even be going on their face page just because you see a whole lot of things. Make sure they're walking, and you pray, in every aspect. Don't just get caught up in the hoop loop. Don't get caught up because they say, or whatever, wait, process, and watch. And just, how would I say? But does it matter? Absolutely, it matters. Because if you have two separate faiths, it's not gonna work together. You can't worship together. One's going this way, the other's going another way. It's one thing if you're already in a marriage and certain things you may have become, religious, and however your mate is not there. But as you are looking for a potential husband, or if there's one and something, make sure you're on the same page with your faith. I would say that is a must. It is. I believe it's a must, unless you both just don't have any. But by us being this righteous view, I believe it is definitely a must, because if you are not walking together in oneness, and coming into the same faith, it's not going to really, because you're going to always tear. And then think about it, your children, the offspring. What do you have? Oh, I'm Catholic and you Jewish. We're going to raise our children.
I know a couple that was like that. I mean, they
got a bunch of confusion.
They're still married, but they were fine. But
and I've seen that. But I say it does matter. The question is, does it matter? I say yes, absolutely, it matters, because you want, peace, you want unity, you want oneness, you want to raise your children in the way where you both are committed, and this is what your children need to see, that unity in the both.
Well, thinking about this, I think about us being a light, and that there are cases, and we know of some where the wife or the young lady was, I'm Christian. He had come into the belief of awaken and realized, who we are as a people. And now they are a beautiful couple, just celebrated their 10th anniversary and renewed their vows, and their babies circumcised, both their little baby boys circumcised. They are both, hands in, just in the walk of the keeping of the covenant of our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So they're both, in the walk, but she did not come in there, and didn't come in there lightly, because my husband and I saw them go through that process. It was a beautiful thing, because he just loved her through it. My beautiful daughter-in-law, when our son started dating, we had come into the walk, and so he was kind of sharing with her, and she gives her testimony of where she just felt like she had to give up everything, but he loved her through it. I said, so I think that there are cases where we are chosen to be that, but I think it's really important to have, because what we're talking about is having those conversations, making sure that is this, because it needs to come out. Look, this is important to me, that we are on the same page, because I do not believe in celebrating the pagan days of the church, but celebrating the biblical holy days of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Have that conversation. And if it is where you are being the portal or the vehicle by where Father brings them into the light of the righteous walk of the Torah, and of course, meaning righteousness according to Father Yahweh's righteousness, not man's righteousness. But it may be that you are to be that portal and be that light for them to come. But I think it is important that that conversation is had. There are many that are searching, and if they are believers or in Messiah Yeshua, because Messiah said, "Those who do the will of the Father, that's who belongs to Him." So if we are walking in that covenant, that's one of those things that you can bring out to this person in your talk when you first meet them. Hey, I believe in keeping the scripture all the way from Genesis to Revelation. I don't believe in throwing any part of it out. I believe that God is God, and He is and was and will be forevermore. Yeshua is Messiah and the Savior of the world. So if it's a situation where you can be that light, or you see that this person is desiring to come into that, I'm telling you, I would give that. That's where you have to give it some time. You can't jump in, because we've seen that where the man come join the ministry. He come every Shabbat. They got married, and this joker didn't come back the next Shabbat. I'm sorry, I called him a joker. I didn't mention his name, but that's what he was.
And
I
that, yeah,
he come back no time after that.
yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah, yeah.
okay, this is what he was just saying. So you got to give it time. I think the thing, you got to give it time. I remember a rabbi who is a dear friend of ours that's out in Colorado. I remember he said that his daughter was one of his Hebrew teachers in his yeshiva, and a gentleman who was he was Christian. They met. He's wanted to start dating her. He comes to him and says, "Sir, I would really like to marry your daughter." And he said, "But we are believers. We are believers in Yeshua, but we are Hebrew. So we are Israel."
That's
and
right.
What you believe within your Christian belief is not necessarily what Father, the Most High, Yahweh, is saying how we should walk.
That's
So
right.
he said, he pretty much looked at him and said, "If you think I'm going to put my beautiful Hebrew daughter into your pagan hands, you better think another, think another thought." He said, "So what I'm going to put out to you, I'm going to tell you that this is what is required of you." And he had this whole where the young man had to come to the ministry and work along in the ministry. I think it was like 2 years or something like that for him to learn, to be able to make a decision on whether truly he loved that young lady or not. Because Rabbi was like, that was going to tell the truth. That was going to be the truth, because now it's going to take 2 years before you can even attempt to get engaged to this woman who you say you love. And it turned his whole life over, turned his whole life around. And now they are both in the ministry walking. They probably got grandchildren for them and everything. But it was something where he said, you have to give it time.
You do.
So truly if this person is truly, you can't do a fly by night, because they will do exactly like what I said: get married and then very next Shabbat not show up. I don't want nothing.
So true. And you're so right. You have to give it time, especially in this walk. You have to give it time.
Absolutely, because they have to understand.
Yeah, they don't have to understand, because it's a whole different thing.
Absolutely.
Especially in this walk. And something that had came to mind. And because it's important. Oh, I know one I wanted to say. And what you said in regards to, like, you talked about your son and Shamika, and I can say, like, my brothers, my brother, my oldest brother Herbert and his wife, and my brother, their wives, when they came, out of, they weren't in the same faith, but in time they have come, and actually even before marriage they came in, and I find it easier, it seems, in times, that women more, like with the men who are in
Yes.
faith,
Yes.
it's easiest for the
Yes.
women, where they come in, but it's
Mhm.
not so easy in the opposite way.
And the
So
opposite
that
way.
requires time. Yes, when it's a woman, a
Mhm.
young lady in this faith, and
Mhm.
someone coming in, it's
Mhm.
not the same. It's not, it's just not. But
Mhm.
we can be that light, being
Yeah.
consistent and
Right.
being firm in your faith. That's what I was, in regards being firm, and then having the process of time, and that, that they'll come. And like I said, with my husband, he came, and I believe he was sincere, but then I don't know, he kind of, but one thing I will say, that in our marriage, even during the time that he wasn't walking, he
Mhm.
didn't disrespect the house.
There you go.
You understand? When I say disrespect the house still, he wasn't coming and doing whatever he wanted on the Shabbats, and
Mhm.
just different things. That was, you
That's
know,
beautiful.
that was in place. He didn't disrespect, because we had young ones. We raised the nephew, and my son was very young. So it
Mhm.
wasn't like, oh, well, let them do whatever, because I've seen this, where they'll say, oh, if they want to do this and do that, and now you got mixed. And so now it's not unity in the home, and that should always be,
Right.
in essence, I would say.
Well, and I'm glad y'all shared all of that because I'm sitting back thinking, with my children and
Mhm.
seeing the complexities of both sides of the Hebraic faith and the Christian walk.
Mhm.
It's very hard for me. Oh, it really is because I'm not worried, like you said, I'm not worried about my son so much, right? But my daughters and
Mhm.
seeing what is happening in religion, period. And I hate to use that word because I know this is a walk. I believe it's a walk, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people believe it's a religion. And they don't, and they won't say that out of their mouth, but their actions speak
Right.
that way. And
Right.
so I'm afraid that they will get, for the girls to get a man who is religious.
Mhm.
And I don't want that. So the same way I prayed is what I want for my daughters. So I've told the Most High because, you know, I was in Christianity when I met my husband. He
Mhm.
was brought up in Christianity, but like you all are saying, that he
Mhm.
wasn't stone cold like a Christian, a stone Christian, but I was, and when I met him, I said, I don't want you to take me off of my path. I want to reconcile with God at the time, and I want to stay reconciled. I'm not going back out in the world. And I
Mhm.
told the Most High before I met him that I did not want a church man. I said I wanted a man who was after your own heart. That when
Mhm.
he does wrong, he will repent because I know if he repent to you and he's always putting you first, that I don't
Mhm.
have to worry about me because when he do something wrong, he is
Right.
instantly going to think about you first.
There you
And
go.
that is
There you
exactly what I got. And so because I was in the Christian faith and then transitioned over into walking into Torah,
Mhm.
because he was already a man after the Most High's heart, it was a little easier for him to transition right along with me. I didn't have those problems. So for me, that's where I'm at. I don't know, and it's difficult because I'm listening to you all, and I'm like, man, these are great points. But for my daughters, with what I'm seeing, it's very dangerous out here in these these religious streets. So I pray that my children want a spouse that's after Yah, after the Most High. Now, if my daughters say, well, he was brought up Christian, like my husband, he was brought up Christian, but he's really not in the church, but he's open to hearing me because, I've been brought up, in walking in Torah. And so, like you all are saying, these are valid points. You have to talk. Like, I don't celebrate Christmas because I've seen couples break up and they're not even religious. They just devout Christmas, they love Christmas. And the other spouse was like, well, I think Christmas is nothing but America trying to run propaganda. It's stuff like that. And they have broken up. So I want them to have these open conversations where, like you all are saying, time. So if like Mela started dating, time is going to tell whether he is in the faith or whether he is, like a Christian, but he's not really a devout Christian. He's just wanting to seek the Most High and trying to find out what that relationship looks like, and they can work together. However, I know that my daughters are raised in the faith, and they are, they 100% on board with, a lot of stuff. They don't eat pork. Like, we be cracking up because I accidentally ate pork, and they was like, Mama, and so I've been raising them in the faith, and they have their own relationship, how they're walking it out. And I really want that for them. So I hear what you both are saying. And we immersed a younger couple. Maybe they were in their 30s. And she brought her husband to us to be immersed, but he wasn't in the faith. He came to be immersed into it. And you could tell that he grew up a Christian, but whatever they discussed and however they did it, he came and got immersed. And not only him, but he brought his daughter. He brought his daughter to be immersed in the faith. So, it's like, does it matter? I believe that their relationship with the Most High really matters, and that, like you said, don't sell out your faith, and to be the light at the same time, like to be both. Like, so how do we be the light to those that are in the Christian faith, who may be a good candidate to be married? However, we have these different nuances of how we worship, right? And how do we talk to, because I always believe in being a bridge. I want to be that bridge to my Christian brothers, to my Muslim brothers, to the 5%ers and so on. I want to be that safe bridge that says, hey, you hear what I'm saying? You see how I'm living? You saw, you watching my light. How, and they like, let me check out what you're doing. And I want, my family to have that type of legacy, right? And so that's why I'm like, how do I really feel about that? Because I am 100% about being that safe bridge to cross over, because we're all supposed to be serving the Most High, right? We're supposed to be serving the one true Elohim. So how does that look in a marriage, right? How does that look really? Like, you know, with the Shabbat, with what we believe, with the Christians, with what they believe, but we're all trying to serve this one Elohim. And how does that look in a marriage? Can we cohabitate with these different nuances?
Can I say something?
Yeah, go.
It is a couple. It was one young lady in our assembly who was who's in the faith, and she became a widow. And anyway, it was one, a friend who was really a good, anyway, she, fell in love with this young man very nice young man, and he was coming out, thus, but now a devout Christian. Even his parents, his father, a pastor, and he was really instrumental to her during the time of her bereavement as a friend. And anyway, they became friends. And you know, I don't want to put anyway. Long story short, the time came when she came to me and told me that he had asked her to marry. How did I feel? And I was honest with her. I said, you'll have to come to an understanding, and I know that she wanted, but anyway, she went out, and it grieved me. It really grieved me because she was really like a daughter to me. She still is, and they got married, and I believe he loves her with all his heart. Don't and they're married, and they're and have children now, but you know he takes the children, on, to his family. Now it was said that she said, well, he agreed that the children wouldn't be raised because she didn't believe in these idolatrous things. But that's not going to stop family.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And he didn't stop going there. Like I said, he came out for a while, and then she was coming by herself, and it was kind of hard for her with the children, however. But then she was going online with another assembly that she had grew up with, and she just started, and she said, well, she still, and so he takes the children, and I mean, they're together and they seem to be, but you know what, you find yourself compromising, and if you don't stand, if you it's the saying says either you got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. And though you want to do, you'll find yourself, even though you may not celebrate these things, but him being the priest of the home. That's why I said it's a difference, a lot of times with the man and the woman. With a woman, it's not, it's easier for the man because he's the priest of that home. That woman will, and he loves her, that she will, tend to
Allow him.
come in, you know what I mean?
Right.
All the time, it doesn't happen the other way. And especially if he has strong beliefs.
Yeah.
And even as you said, Christina, love the Most High. And I believe this young man loves the Most High in his way, but certain people are still adamant in certain ways. Like when you talk to him, he's a praying man. They pray, they do all of these things, but he's still committed to what he believes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so now she doesn't come, really come out. I don't even know what she sent me a text and asked me what we're doing Passover. How are you really doing? Because he's and this is what I saw beforehand. But you didn't wait. See, it's a process, just waiting. Don't be anxious. Wait. Because I believe me, I believe he would, because I believe he do love the Most High. And I believe in time he would have come in.
Yeah.
But now you find yourself, you are compromising, whether you know it or not, you have.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. The waiting, because I would wait, and we would have to spend that whole year and see how you celebrate. All of these festivities. That's gonna tell the story if you just wait and let that clock tick and see what they're doing around the festivities. Because again, people that are not religious are coming out of celebrating a lot of these festivities.
A lot of those.
That's
Right.
This is just like that don't make no sense.
Right.
Halloween is stupid. Thanksgiving is,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And they are coming out of it. So, like you said, if
Correct.
that's what I want my daughters to do, you gonna make him wait, and we gonna see how he
Right.
does.
Yeah. Because if he it says all of this love
Mhm.
for her and desire for her, then he'll wait. And that's the thing that I loved about what that rabbi did concerning his daughter. He said, "You ain't about
That's
to take
beautiful.
my
That's beautiful.
beautiful Hebrew daughter and paganize her, talking about you love her." Guess what, Joe? You getting ready to work in this ministry right here for 2 years. You got to come and be part of the Hebrew classes, learn about our walk. Now, if you decide after 2 years, yeah, that's too hard, not something I want to do, then you go out by yourself. That's Torah.
Yeah.
That's Torah.
That is Torah. So the scripture says that if a man becomes poor, and I don't want to get all into the whole Bible lesson, but this is something that we say to couples and to people who say they want to come into the walk. Then we bring up this scenario, this scripture, this Torah, where if a man finds himself poor and he goes and he sells himself to a person to work off his debt. He has made a debt with this person and he sells himself to work off the debt. While he was there, he meets a maiden, falls in love with her. He goes to his master and he says, "I've met this young lady and I would like to marry her." And the master says, "Okay, all right. She's my servant too. She belongs to me. I will give her to you." They get married. He goes on and works off his debt. And now it's time for him. He can make a choice. He can either leave or he can stay. But the scripture says you come in by yourself, you go out by yourself. You don't own nothing up in the kingdom of the Most High.
Right. That's
You
right.
don't own nothing. So guess what? You don't get to take nothing out the kingdom. You
That's
get
right.
to have it in the kingdom,
That's
but you don't
Torah.
get to take it out
That's
because
right.
you didn't bring nothing in this kingdom.
That's right.
This is his kingdom. So then what happens when he stands and he says, "I love my wife." Now she's had children. "I love my children. I love my master." Hallelujah.
That's right.
So guess what? I'm going to stay. You go to the doorpost and you put a earring in his ear.
Yeah.
Now he has become a bond servant, a free servant unto the Most High. That is a beautiful picture of the kingdom.
That's a beautiful picture. And that is Torah.
You
That's
get to, because we've had couples coming, "Well, I want to, and well, I'm doing something different." And now she just, we give them that scripture to take nothing out. You didn't bring nothing in the kingdom. What you brought in the kingdom of Father Yahweh? What you brought in the kingdom? Nothing. Yourself. So you get to take yourself out. But you don't get to take her out of the kingdom. And that speaks to there's another thing that you have to talk about when you are dating and talking about your religious or spiritual belief, because he cannot come and now try to give you a story of, "Oh yeah, well, I don't want to do that no more. Now we getting ready to go out here and we getting ready to party hardy, and we ain't going to do nothing. We ain't going to nobody church,
Right.
nobody synagogue, nobody temple. We ain't doing that no more." No, now she has a right to say, "Sir, I will no longer be your wife then, because I belong to the master.
Right.
And these children belong to the master. So you can leave,
Right.
but I'm staying in the kingdom." You don't get to take anything out of the kingdom. So, and this is what this rabbi said: you're not about to take my daughter out of the kingdom of the Most High, but you need to look and see if this is something, because this is her life. And she was like, yeah, I'm good with it. She told her father, absolutely. Because this will show me, that's where the wisdom comes in. When you know that you have a wise mother or a wise father, or you have a wise congregational leader who will be able to stand and say, okay, look, this is the deal, and this is what he should be willing to do. We have to, as women, we have to learn to listen to wise counsel.
Yes.
And that's something, when we get our hearts all set in a place, in a position, then it's going to be a problem, because now we're not listening to wise counsel. So our heart is all in there. So one thing I usually will tell women, and people will say that this is not reasonable, but my thing is, this is why I don't believe in intimacy before marriage. Not because of the whole thought where people, normal Christianity thinks of it from that way standpoint. I think of it from a very literal standpoint, because if you have that intimacy before, it clouds your vision.
It does.
It just does.
It does.
It just does. Once you have had that intimacy and that touching, that women, sisters,
That's right.
we are emotional.
That's right.
Our heart, when we give ourselves, when we allow that intimate touching, you are going to think about that first before you think about he ain't good with finances.
That's right.
He's sloppy in his walk.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's really, really mean and doesn't speak well to me. You're gonna think about, well, we've already been intimate. I mean, what am I going to just keep going around and now I let him go and then I go to another one? I just might as well go ahead. That's what happens in our minds.
Yeah.
And I'm a woman, so I know what goes on in a woman's mind. I've heard women say, yeah, I might as well go ahead and marry him because we've been living together for the past 2 years. But he's a terrible mate living with him. He's terrible. So why would you marry him? Because that's what your mind tells you. Because that's what your emotions tell you. Because now you have linked yourself, and you have linked yourself spiritually. When a man and woman are intimate, they link together in the spirit realm.
Yeah.
Whether you believe it or not, I don't care how much a woman. They're talking about, well, some women are just run around and have sex with anybody, and she's linked to all those men that she did. And what happens many times when that occurs is that then when she gets married, then a lot of times there's issues of all of relationships that she now has to, and she has to war against, and she has to this one with this one. So it's very, very the touching minimal, because we're going to get connected and we're going to think about that first, and we're not going to think about he doesn't keep a job, but every 2 weeks. He had 15 jobs in 3 years. We're not going to think about, we're not going to see all those red flags. All we're going to see is we've been intimate. We might as well go ahead and get married. We've got to guard with all what the scriptures say, with all diligence. Guard your heart.
That's
For
right.
out of it flow the issues of life. And if
Absolutely.
you guard yourself in that,
Yes.
and then I'm not talking about holding hands. I'm not even talking about a kiss or you get that there you're gonna think those red flags they're in front of us, they're in front of you. Then you can't hear it from your mother, your older siblings, your good friends who love you and see all the red flags. Your pastor, you're not gonna listen because all you see, all you remember, all your body is crying out for is that person. So we really did have to be careful, and our belief will go out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Go out the window.
Sure. That's right.
And then we'll tell ourselves, well, he's my husband, and the Bible says that I have to submit to him. But baby, you don't submit to him in wrong. If he is not submitting to the Holy Spirit and walking in a righteous walk, there's no submission to that. Nothing in the Torah, nothing in the scripture tells us to leave righteousness to follow our husbands. Nothing says that.
Yeah, you're right. All of these are great. Yeah. Well, praise you. I'm done.
Oh yes, I didn't even know it was that time.
Yeah, it is.
I think your door closed and it started acting up. Your internet.
Yeah, internet was acting
Gotta
up.
open the door. I think the wind closed the door. Yeah, as soon as that door started closing.
She's frozen again.
Yeah, her internet acted up. She must have to keep it open. That's funny. Yes. So I guess what was she saying? We're gonna stop there. I'm trying to see if she comes back.
Yeah.
Well, I know one thing that and I'm grateful for that because when my children decide to get married, I'm bringing them to the elders. Seriously, like
No, I agree.
bring them to the elders, even if they don't know much about the walk. We know how to ask straightforward questions.
Yeah.
And that's I hate that a lot of the women don't have that type of community. But yeah, I said you gotta open the door.
He closed the door because he was trying.
Oh yeah, he was saying we was too loud. We about to get off.
I think we're gonna have to we still have health concerns, family history, generation. So we'll table that for the next one.
Okay.
Instead of going into the deal breakers, we'll just talk about the other two, the health concerns, family, because these are big. These topics are huge, but I think it's important for us to talk about them because people are truly wanting to know. Marriages are breaking up. A divorce rate is just as high within the church and within the Hebrew community.
Yes.
It's just as high. People in the Hebrew community getting divorced too. So somebody's got to stop and take the time and say, hey, this is what we've got to look at, and this is what we need to look at beforehand. And I'm just one that I believe marriage is a proactive. It has to have proactivity in order to be successful. You nip it. It's like Messiah said. You catch it when it's small. You catch it when it's a small thing. You don't wait until it's a full-grown oak tree. And now you're going to start training it. You got to train that thing when it's a sapling. So before you're getting ready to put it in the ground And these are the things that we bring out. Now you can make, before any of the touching starts, before any of the discussion about white dresses and limousines and where we're going to do the ceremony, who's going to come, before that these grown people conversations need to be had so we can make a good decision. Information.
That's right.
We'll just table those two. So the next session we'll talk about health concerns, family health history, and then generational concerns. What does your family history look like?
Yes. Yeah.
That's a big one. Wow.
Yes. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to close out. And that is all right. Our email, please email us at therighteousview01@gmail.com. Please send your topics that you feel will be beneficial to the conversation. If you have a degree or special training in a specific area related to women's health and would like to be a special guest, email us your bio and we will review it and reply as soon as we can.
Yes. If you have enjoyed the podcast so far, please tune in and tell a friend. Next session will be May 15th. We will continue in this discussion concerning marriage. We will also, and as we have been talking just today, the topic which was today was questions you and your to-be spouse need to discuss. We're going to continue on that on our next podcast. We'll then discuss further in health concerns, family health history, joint generational concerns, and what does your family history look like? These are the topics that we will be discussing in regard on our next podcast. All right.
All righty. If you put a comment in the chat that we didn't address, please do email us and we'll reply to you as soon as we can. We want to thank all of our viewers for tuning in, and we look forward to another edition of The Righteous View. Have a great evening, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your week. And we'll see you on May 15th.
Yes.
Love y'all.